Welcome into the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. We've got a great show today, folks. A show that I'm very excited to bring you today because it is complex on many different levels. In fact, this story today is going to shock. This story today is about deception. Story today has no redemption, unfortunately. And it's one of those shows that I think that you're going to learn about the darker side of human life. And unfortunately, in these types of shows, I don't know a better way to put this other than just buckle in and we're going to talk to our guest, Emilio Corsetti, who's written a brilliant book. The book is called Iwillruinyou, The Twisted Truth Behind the KitMartinMurder Trial, where unfortunately 3 people lost their lives. And you'll learn exactly why, when we write certain laws in this country, that laws were, I guess, meant to be broken. And unfortunately, people use laws and they twist them to their advantage. And sometimes it comes out in a deadly way. And when we write these laws, there's no better way to put this other than we can't put safeguards in to keep them from being abused. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the abuse of certain laws. We're going to talk about how one man's life was ruined, for lack of a better term, and just how devious people can be. Let me tell you about Emilio Corsetti, who, again, a brilliant author. He's the author of the best-selling nonfiction books, 35 Miles from Shore and Scapegoat. Emilio is a graduate of St. Louis University Parks College of Aviation. He and his wife, Lynn, reside in Dallas, Texas. Let's welcome him into the program. We've got a lot to talk about today. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome in for the first time to True Crime Tuesday, Emilio Corsetti. Mr.
Hey.
Corsetti, welcome.
Hey, glad to be here, and that was a great introduction.
Thank you. It's tough to introduce such a complex issue and not give away too much in the beginning, because we've got a lot to get to today. Tell us a little bit first about exactly who Kit Martin is and why this is so complex.
Oh, Kit is he was a career military guy. He spent almost 30 years total between reserves and enlisted military time. Mm-hmm. He was in the Army. He was he went to Army Ranger school. He also flew an attack helicopter in the Iraq War. So he did 3 tours of duty in Iraq. When he came back from military duty, he was based in Germany. He came back to the States. He eventually decided he was going to transfer from his skills as a helicopter pilot to a fixed wing pilot so that he could eventually fly for the airlines. That was his goal.
Okay.
And he accomplished that. He was able to get his fixed wing licenses, and he got a job with an American Airlines regional carrier called PSA Airlines. And that's how things stood in May of 2019 when he was arrested in uniform at the airport, at Louisville International Airport, as he was getting ready to board a flight to work as the first officer. And he was eventually charged and convicted of murdering 3 of his neighbors.
And that's where we start. That's just where we start, Emilio.
Right.
We can say, when you look at the evidence, and this is just looking at the evidence from a neutral point, unlawfully convicted. I think it's safe to say unlawfully convicted.
Yeah, there are definitely, I mean, going all the way back to the indictment, right? They used false testimony to get an indictment to make the arrest. And then from that point on, it was one deception after another throughout the trial.
Now, Kit in his service, and you do a very wonderful, detailed job of Kit's service and detailing his service. Kit served, what was it, 3 tours?
3 tours, yeah.
3 tours. Decorated serviceman. But he did have some issues in the service. Can you detail those?
You're talking about the court-martial?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, right. Well, to understand the court-martial and the way this book starts out, you have to go back to September of 2012.
Yes.
All right. And on September 5th, 2012, Kit got into an argument with his wife, Joan, which resulted in Kit asking for a divorce. And Joan's response to that was that she was going to ruin his life and ruin his career, and that she knew how to do it. And what she was referring to was that she was going to accuse him of domestic abuse, which would cause all kinds of problems in his military career. That was the first thing. But she also did the same thing. She accused him of domestic abuse, child abuse in the civilian realms as well, with civil authorities. And that eventually, even though he was cleared on the civil side, they found that there was no evidence that there was any child abuse or domestic abuse. The military still continued on because of some images that Joan had of her son, EJ, which she said showed injuries that were caused by Kit.
Okay.
And that also, additionally, he was charged with mishandling of classified materials. And that was the result of a CD, of a laptop disk and some CDs that had some classified information on it that was turned over by Joan and a neighbor, Calvin Phillips. Calvin Phillips would end up being one of the victims in this crime, this murder. So that eventually, over years, proceeded and ended up in a court-martial. But before the court-martial, 2 weeks before the court-martial, Calvin Phillips, his wife, Pamela Phillips, and eddesereau, a neighbor, all 3 were murdered. And the prime suspect was Kit Martin, because Calvin Phillips was scheduled to testify for the military in the court-martial. So he was definitely a suspect. There's no question about that. He lived right across the street.
Mm-hmm.
The guy had like 30 weapons in his house, including a 22, which was used in the killings, and a 45 caliber pistol, which was also used in the killings. So he was definitely somebody that they needed to look at. The problem was they couldn't connect him to the crime until later, almost 5 months later, when some evidence was turned over by family members of Calvin Phillips.
And we'll get into why Kit is excluded here in a little bit later in the program. Now, initially, when you put it the way you just put it, yeah, Kit looks a little guilty.
Yeah, it's, you know, when I first heard about this crime, I was flying for American Airlines,
Mm-hmm.
and it was pretty big news. Hey, a pilot was just arrested at the Louisville International Airport and charged with 3 homicides. So I mean, it caught my attention, no question about it.
Right.
And then I just didn't hear anything about it, and I went on with my career. And then I heard the news that he had been convicted. And I said, wow, I mean, I've flown with a lot of wacky pilots, but never anybody who was charged with homicide.
Yeah.
Right. So I said I just assumed he was guilty. And then the Dateline came out with an episode called "The Evil That Watches." I don't know if you've seen it. I've watched it. It was slanted heavily towards the family members of Calvin Phillips, mm-hmm. and how they helped, according to the program, solve this crime by handing over evidence to the police. But as I watched it, I felt that there was more to it, because they also interviewed Kit.
Okay.
And he came across as sincere and honest. So I decided I was going to watch the murder trial. Here's a good argument for having cameras in the courtroom. Mm-hmm. If they hadn't videotaped the entire murder trial, and any of your listeners or viewers can go online and watch the murder trial from start to finish, right? I would never have known what took place at that trial and all the deception that went on. So I went online and I started watching the actual murder trial because I had so many questions about it.
Right.
And as the prosecution was laying out their case, I'm thinking, wow, this is a done deal. I mean, they got this guy. He's guilty. But then when the defense got on and you realized there were all these problems with this evidence and the case at large, I came to the conclusion that he was innocent. Huh. So at that point, I decided I was going to dig deeper and tell his story.
And it's an interesting story at that. And like you said, his ex-wife, Joan, comes forward and says, "I will ruin you." And from that point on, things start to fall in place. And there's more on the side of Joan saying, you know what? I'm going to start putting things in motion to really ruin you than there is Kit saying, you know what? I'm going to get rid of Calvin, his wife, Pam, and the next door neighbor. And I'm going to do it in, I believe what the prosecution said, a military style fashion.
Military precision.
Precision. That's what it was. Military precision.
Right.
Which, when you look at all the factors that they tried to put together in the trial, would have been nearly impossible for him to do with the, because Kit had cameras set up in his home because he had gone through some vandalism at his home, which probably, now again, I'm not going to point to, you don't want to point fingers. I'll point the fingers. Look like it might have been somebody who was involved with Joan, who was doing this vandalism at his home. Somebody was retaliating against Kit for whatever.
Exactly.
Okay. So he had vandalism happening at his place of residence. So he had cameras set up to try to catch whoever it was who was perpetrating this vandalism against him. So he's trying to capture all of this. The only place he doesn't have cameras set up is in the front of his house, because the front door had to be nailed shut because it was warped and it couldn't stay closed properly. So he didn't have cameras at the front door because nobody came to the front door, right?
Right.
Okay.
Well, let me talk about the front door for just a second.
Sure. Go ahead.
All right. So when Joan and Kit or Joan's children moved to Pembroke, Kentucky, this is where the crime took place. They bought the house at auction. It was built in the 19th century, right? It's an old house, and they got it for $60,000, but it needed a lot of work. And one of the things, before they purchased the house, it had been vacant for 2 years. So all through these seasonal changes, the front door especially warped to the point where they had trouble opening and closing it because it had warped so bad. So one of the things that they ended up doing was, well, they did a couple of things. They nailed the top of the door to the frame to help straighten it out. Then he took a door stop and he put it underneath the the handle of the door to apply pressure on the door to keep it into the frame. And then because of the door was warped, they put insulation all around where the gaps were in the door.
Okay.
So the door was not used. The front door was never used. So that's why there was no camera covering that section of the house. And all the people that were living in the house at the time testified that they never used the front door and they never saw anyone else use the front door. But the front door, according to the prosecution, and because of the security camera footage, which you just mentioned, is the only way he could have committed the crime, because all his other movements were accounted for in the security camera footage.
And essentially, that fateful night where these three people are murdered, he's accounted for. He's, you know, his dogs are acting up because they're hearing strange noises across the street over at the Phillips's house.
We're seeing it because they were in the side yard of the house and they had a direct line of sight to the Phillips's driveway where part of this crime took place.
Right, correct. And so he's you know, Kit's hearing the dogs bark, so he moves them from the side yard to the backyard. He's awake because there's a new kerosene heater. He sets an alarm for 1:10 a.m., I believe.
Yes.
To make sure that they're, of course, not going to be subjected to fumes, or they're not going to burn up in the middle of the night. Make sure that this kerosene heater is working perfectly, because it's the first cold night of the season. And he wants to make sure his family's safe. He's up at that point watching TV around 2 a.m., I believe. His new wife Laura, sees him watching television. He's accounted for. His wife knows that he's there. He's got an alibi. He hasn't left. And
right.
The house is old and creaky. The children would have heard him going back and forth, right?
Right. And you know, if you listen to the prosecution's theory of the crime, it's, well, like you said, it's impossible, right? Because there was so much that had to be done at the crime scene, right? They cleaned up the crime scene. They wiped up blood. They transported bodies to a vehicle. They moved two vehicles from the crime scene, and they set one vehicle on fire. But according to the prosecution, he did this all by himself. He set this car on fire 4 miles from the crime scene, then walked back, and then he did some other things. He was up all night, and then the next day he goes to work like normal. He drives his stepdaughter, well, not quite his stepdaughter, but his fiance's daughter, the horseback riding lessons, which is 45 minutes away, 45 minutes back, and nothing out of the ordinary occurs during that time. So, but getting back to what you were mentioning, but let's look at the alarm and the kerosene heater. All right. The lead investigator, Leonard Scott Smith, had what I believe is tunnel vision, right? They were focused because he was such a good suspect. He had everything going for him as a suspect, but they couldn't fit any evidence to tie him to the crime. So they would look at things, and using confirmation bias, they would apply things that looked like it made him look guilty, and then they would exclude or explain away things that pointed elsewhere. In those two examples, those two that you just mentioned, the front door, for example, the kerosene heater, and the alarm, are all things that in a normal investigation, an investigator might look at this and go back to the person. Hey, why did you set your alarm at 1:10 a.m.? All right. And the answer would have been, well, because we were using a kerosene heater for the very first time. It was a brand new heater, and I wanted to make sure that it was working properly. All right. So that's the answer. But the prosecution took it and said he set it at 1:10 a.m. in the morning because that's when he went across the street and he loaded two bodies into the two cars or into the car and then did all this other stuff at the crime scene.
Yeah. Yep.
Confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias. And with this, so you have Kit's alibi, you have people who have accounted for him, you even have you have video footage.
Exactly.
And yet you have the police like a dog on a bone going after him, and you have prosecutors going after him and saying, well, no, we have you dead to rights, because we have they even have well, they claim they have a dog tag and a wallet of Kit's at the crime scene.
No, not the wallet was Calvin's wallet and phone. The dog tag was sitting next to it.
That's right. But they have a dog tag. But when they show them the dog tag, there's a problem with the dog tag. And what's that problem, Emilio?
Well, there were a number of problems with the dog tag. For one, what they were claiming was that he went across the street and killed 3 people. And in the process of trying to burn the house down, this is the prosecution's bizarre theory. He had a dog tag around his neck on a string. And then because a chain conducts heat, he took the dog tag off while he was cleaning up the crime scene and left it at the crime scene. Okay, so that's the prosecution's bizarre theory. But there are so many problems with that. For one, the dog tag had Kit Martin on the dog tag. In official military dog tags, Kit is a nickname. His name is Christian Richard Martin. So that's the name that would have been on the dog tag, not Kit Martin.
Right.
And it certainly wouldn't have been on a string. It would have been on a chain. Mm-hmm. So the evidence points to the dog tag being a novelty item that was purchased for one of Joan's 3 kids. But they never pursued that. And unfortunately, the defense attorneys never questioned the fact that a dog tag doesn't have nicknames on it. So it wasn't his dog tag. And you certainly wouldn't commit a crime and kill 3 people and then leave something with your name on it for investigators to find, right? Additionally, and this wasn't brought up at trial either, the dog tag was found on a bookshelf, as you said, next to one of the victim's phones and wallets. It was on a built-in bookshelf. We know from a phone call that Pamela Phillips made just before she was murdered, one of the things she said was, have you seen Calvin? Because his keys and his wallet are sitting out on the table. So what that means is that after they were murdered, somebody took that wallet from the table and put it on the bookshelf next to the phone, next to where they left the dog tag, thinking that the investigators would find all of those items. But they didn't find those items. They only found the wallet and the phone, and it was the victim's family, Calvin's sister, Diana, and Calvin and Pam's son, Matt, found the dog tag, and they handed it over to police. 5 months or 6 months later, 4 months maybe, between 4 and 6 months later.
So really, the investigators didn't do as thorough of a search as whoever put that there thought they were going to do.
Well, the prosecution kept saying that, this was a crime done with military precision, and he planned for all contingencies, but yet he leaves his dog tag there, and then we haven't even gotten to the shell casing.
Yep.
But additionally, between 6 months later or something along those lines, I don't remember the exact dates, family members found a shell casing on the back porch. And it's important to note that Calvin, his body was discovered in the cellar which was accessed from the back porch, from stairs on the back porch. They couldn't say that he was killed there because he had 5 gunshot wounds, 45 caliber gunshot wounds, but there was no blood spatter anywhere on the back porch. So they couldn't determine where he was killed, but that his body was found in the cellar. And the shell casing that Diana found was also located on the back porch. Now, here's an important thing about the shell casing. Shell casing was proved to have come from one of Kit's guns, his 45 caliber pistol. That shell casing was positively identified from having come from his gun. So right there, you would think slam dunk. All right. How does your shell casing end up on the back porch of a crime scene? Problem is, when they retrieved the bullets from the body of Calvin Phillips and they compared it to test bullets from his gun, they could not conclusively match those bullets to the gun. And so additionally, and this is very important, the bullets that were used to kill one of the victims, Calvin Phillips, were a special bullet called a G2 Research RIP round. RIP as in rest in peace. It was designed specifically to kill. And the way it did that is when it entered the body, it had 8 trocars, what they call trocars, which are like little petals that would break off and spread throughout the body and cause internal damage in the body. Now, the problem with the shell casing that was recovered on the back porch, it did not have the same metal combination of firing pin and shell casing as that type of bullet would normally have. Okay. So those were the huge problems that they had with that piece of evidence. So the question is, how did the dog tag get there, for one? And 2, how did the shell casing get there? And the defense theory was that it was planted there. It happens to also be my theory. And I initially discarded those theories when I started this project because I felt like everybody else. If you were going to plant evidence, you wouldn't plant it so that it wouldn't be found, right? You plant evidence so investigators would find it. Right. But in this instance, the investigators did not find the dog tag or the shell casing. They were found, discovered by family members of the victims and handed over to police. So initially I thought it wasn't planted, and there are other ways that evidence could have been left there that wasn't planted. For example, the dog tag. It's pretty obvious that it was a novelty dog tag that was purchased for one of Joan's 3 kids. And Joan and her 3 kids stayed for a short time at that residence while there was a separation between Joan and Kit. So one theory is it could have been left there accidentally by one of the children, right? And the shell casing, Calvin Phillips was what some people would call a hoarder. He kept things. His house was full of things. The back porch was full of all kinds of detritus, paint cans and building materials and ropes and tarps and all kinds of stuff. And they did target shooting in the back of Calvin's house. So, and that 45 was shot in the back of Calvin's house as part of a concealed carry class that was held there. So it's quite conceivable that Calvin himself had just retrieved the shell casing and just never discarded it. So those are all possibilities. But I believe that it was planted, as the defense argued.
And that's not unreasonable. And in fact, it's more probable than unreasonable that a lot of the stuff that came along 5-6 months later is not true evidence, that it's completely planted and that it was just forced along by the family to try and get somebody convicted, and move this thing along because they just wanted justice, which is understandable. I mean, let's face it, Emilio, you've got you've got dead parents, your world has been, overturned. You think you know who the killer is as far as a family goes. You're grieving and you're like, you know what? We just want to see this guy in jail. And we think we know who did it. You know, we know that, our parents, and this is part of the story we haven't revealed yet, but our parents had said, according to hearsay, this was hearsay, that our parents had said that they feared that if anything had ever happened to them, that it was going to be the guy next door who did it, which was Kit.
And that hearsay evidence, which is not normally allowed at trial, was crucial in his conviction. All right. And there were 4 different witnesses that said basically the same thing, that a couple of weeks prior to the crime, if something were to happen to us, all you need to do is go across the street. So all of the arrows were pointing to Kit. He was the prime suspect. He lived across the street. He had military training. He had weapons. He had motive, according to the prosecution, because Calvin was going to testify at the court-martial. Everything was pointing to Kit. And now they have this shell casing and they have this dog tag.
Now, here's what we're going to do. I want to take a break here, Emilio. When we come back, now we're going to tell you why it's not Kit. We're going to tell you exactly why it may be his ex-wife, Joan. Why Joan might have set this entire thing up, and why Joan would truly ruin Kit. I Will Ruin You, The Twisted Truth Behind the Kit Martin Murder Trial is the name of the book. Emilio Corsetti is the author who's written this brilliant book. When we come back, we're going to tell you why his ex-wife, Joan, was the one who truly ruined Kit Martin. When we come back right here on the best in true crime podcasting, this is True Crime Tuesday. Welcome back to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. My guest is Emilio Corsetti. The book is I Will Ruin You, The Twisted Truth Behind the Kit Martin Murder Trial. When we left you, we were talking about, well, the fact that all evidence points so far, according to the prosecution, at Kit Martin, and the fact that he may have murdered 3 people in this murder trial, that all signs point to him as far as the prosecution goes. Again, as far as the prosecution goes. Now, in the beginning of the program, Emilio had pointed out that his wife, Joan, had said, I will ruin you. You think about leaving me. I'm going to make it your worst nightmare. I'm going to make it look like you abused me. I'm going to take you down. Already, he's gone through a court-martial as far as the military went. Already, he's made it look like he's abused his eldest stepson. And now he's facing a murder trial for 3 people, including the Collinses across the street, the 2 neighbors, and his neighbor.
Oh, no, it was Calvin and Pam, and then the neighbor, Ed Dansereau.
And then Ed Dansereau, who, now, in all fairness, when we talk about Ed Dansereau, you're talking about a guy who Kit used to go over and listen to music with him.
Yeah, I mean, they were neighbors, and they'd spent time together. There's evidence that the neighbor had come over to Kit's house. I mean, they weren't really close, but they were friendly neighbors.
Yeah, they're friendly neighbors. So, a little out of character for Kit to go, I'm going to go shoot the guy, right?
Oh yeah,
seems out of character. In the retelling of the story, it seems like Ed had heard a disturbance over at the Collins house, and this is the part we're leaving out, and had grabbed his gun to go see what was going on, and that's how he got caught up in this, correct?
Yeah, and it's funny that anybody looking at the evidence of the crime would conclude that Ed was preparing dinner, and he was preparing a fish dinner. He was a gourmet chef, Ed Dansereau was. And as he was preparing his dinner, he had already been alerted to the fact that Pam was looking for Calvin. So he was, he was keeping his eye out to see if he can find out where his neighbor was. And his kitchen window, looked right straight to the back side of the Calvin Phillips's house. Right. So the evidence points to, as you said, him seeing something or hearing something that so alarmed him that he went and grabbed a World War II era pistol and ran across to his neighbor's house, going down the driveway around a wooden privacy fence, where he was shot once, and then he was shot several other times in the backyard. All right.
Mm-hmm.
But the prosecutor, when she was telling the jury the story of the crime and her version of the crime, Ed d'Angelo was shot first in the backyard because he was looking for Calvin Phillips. Well, none of that makes any sense, because let's say that I was going to go in the backyard and look for somebody that apparently was missing. Would I take my pistol with me when I did that? I mean, so that doesn't make any sense at all. And additionally, he was shot in two different locations. So he wasn't shot in the backyard. He ultimately ended up in the backyard, but that's not where he was initially shot. He was initially shot down 60 yards away in the driveway. So the prosecution didn't even have the theory of the crime correct as they presented it to the jury.
Interesting. So I want to turn the spotlight over to why Kit's not even in the picture as far as being guilty of this crime, and why we should look at Joan. Now, I want to go all the way back to the initial argument between Kit and Joan. The night that Kit and Joan are arguing, and she says, "I will ruin you," there's a call to the police, because essentially when they're arguing and she says, "I will ruin you," Kit goes, "If you really think I'm abusing you, go ahead and call the cops. You just go ahead, because I haven't touched you."
Right. And in fact, so there's the argument. I mean, the actual threat is, and it's some dispute because Kit's daughter has a little bit different version of what the threat was, but it was basically, if you divorce me, I will run your career, I will run your life, and I know how to do it. But at that point, Kit, who is a career military guy, he knows that claims of abuse can be serious, have serious repercussions.
Mm-hmm.
So he says, "I'll tell you what, I'll call the police, and you can make your claims with the police." So he calls the police, and then Joan gets on the phone, and she calls 911, claiming domestic abuse. So now that we have three different police cars coming up, one from the 911 call and one from Kit's call. The problem is, Joan is claiming that, he hit me with his fists, and he hit me with his hands, and he caused all this. I got red marks on my face. Well, the police officer shined a flashlight looking at her and didn't observe any kind of anything that would indicate domestic abuse. So that's how things started with this accusation. And then she would all go on. She would tell one neighbor that she had blood all over her face from him beating on her, which was totally false, because their police were there and could dispute that.
Mm-hmm. Now, we're not making light of domestic violence here by any means, because there are plenty of people who suffer at the hands of domestic violence. This is a woman who took advantage of the system and did it repeatedly, and took advantage of laws in our country that are meant to protect people who are suffering. And she twisted it to her means so she could again frame this man to her advantage, for lack of a better term.
So I think it's important to point out, to add to what you just said, Joan had experience with the military system. She'd been Kit's wife for 10 years. They'd been deployed to Germany. So she knew all about the family advocacy program and how the military helps families who are caught up in domestic abuse. And there is a very large financial benefit to anyone who is found to have suffered from domestic abuse, right? So if there's a charge of domestic abuse, the military will separate the military member and the family, and they will help support that family while the process works through the system, the judicial system and the military.
Which,
And
if I may add, Emilio, is admirable.
exactly.
Yeah.
But it's open to abuse, right? Because anyone can claim domestic abuse, and it's a he said, she said, right? And the military has to figure out which version is the truth. And I'm not going to say that Joan benefited financially because I was not able to prove that. And there was testimony at trial that said that they made attempts to find out whether or not she benefited financially, but they were unable to verify it. So I can't make that claim, but that would have been a motivation. Additionally, as the charges progressed, and Kit was initially charged with domestic abuse. When they couldn't really prove that, she moved on to child abuse because she had these pictures, right, that showed potential abuse of Elijah, EJ.
Mm-hmm.
So they had some verifiable evidence, but they didn't have anything else other than that. So they kept trying to find people who would say that, yeah, that he was abusive to the children, but they couldn't find anybody. So then Joan elevated her attacks against Kit by accusing him of sexual abuse while they were married.
Yeah.
Now, why is that important? Well, as it turns out, Joan was not legally divorced from her first husband. So when she married Kit, she was still married to another man. So she was eventually charged with bigamy. All right. So that meant that the whole marriage was not, it was null, it was invalid, which put a big hamper on her opportunity to gain any kind of financial benefits, right? Because she's no longer a military, part of a military family.
Right. She's not a spouse.
But if she accuses him of sexual assault, she doesn't have to be married to him. You can accuse a military member of sexual assault and not be married to him,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's a huge financial benefit if he's found guilty of that. In addition, if he's found guilty of sexual assault, when he went to this court-martial trial, he was facing up to 58 years in prison from all the charges that he was facing.
Wow. Wow. Um, the interesting part about the story with the previous husband is shocking. And I want to bring up one detail on that, and that is to talk about how devious Joan is that husband was he was illegal. He was in the country illegally. But was wanting to work on getting his green card, which I believe he's successfully got now. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But she was holding it over his head. And not only that, but she leaves in the middle of the night. And the man that moved her out, because she had told this man that he was beating her, which he wasn't, that he was beating her and his children and her children, and that she needed help getting out in the middle of the night because he was so abusive. The man who got her out of that situation, moved her out in the middle of the night, was Kit.
Exactly. So, and it's also important to note that, for one, when Kit first met Joan, she told him that EJ's father was a different person than Joan. Had three children. She had one boy and two young girls, and they had different fathers. Joan told Kit that EJ's father had died in a logging accident and had been beheaded in a logging accident. And he had no reason not to believe that. And then, as you said, she said that the father of her two girls was abusive to her and the kids, and that's why she wanted to leave him. The truth was those were all lies. EJ's father was not beheaded, and he was still alive. And she had taken EJ away from the first father and not told her where she was, so he had no idea what had happened to his son. And then the two girls, she had taken the two girls from her husband and kept them away from him for 10 years with no contact. So that's the type of person that Joan was, even when they first met up with Kit.
She even, I suppose we could even talk about this. She even went so far as to get away from her own parents by
Right. She accused her own father of child abuse. So she has an issue with the truth. Now, as you haven't pointed it out, I did not interview Joan for the book, and it wasn't from a lack of trying. I just could not locate her. All right. So anything that I say about Joan is not from my personal interactions with her, but I use the statements, testimony, and interviews from other people to describe Joan in their own words, right? So it's not coming from me. Anything that's in there that's just describing people that I have not personally met or interviewed are coming from other people. Verifiable testimony, transcripts, statements, so forth.
Now, there's another interesting, I don't know that we call it a fact here, Emilio, but there's another interesting rumor story thing floating out there that maybe Calvin and Joan were involved.
Yeah, that's not rumor. That you had two people give statements saying that they caught him in the process of having sex. So
Okay.
it goes beyond rumor when you have two eyewitnesses. One of them was the chief of police. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's beyond a rumor. So if they're involved, here's my question. I just won't be delicate about it. Why? Kid obviously isn't. He's not jealous about the situation. He wants to move on.
Yeah, he suspected that something was going on, but there were problems in the marriage. And by the time they got to that argument in September of 2012, he was ready to just move on.
Yeah.
Right? So he was ready to be done with it, affair or not. And the affair was never something that came up in this entire process.
And you even allude to it that he suspected because she went across the street to Calvin's place for conceal and carry. Wasn't it conceal and carry training, or was it target practice?
Both.
Okay. So
Right.
with that, and she spent a lot of time over there, he kind of suspected something was going on. But
yeah, I mean, we're talking about Pembroke, Kentucky, right? Pembroke, at the time of this incident, the whole population of Pembroke was 700 people. So it's not like, I mean, if something like that is happening, people are going to know about it. The fact that they're going back and forth between each residence and spending all this time together. And additionally, they Calvin had this warehouse that was just a few blocks away from his house where he kept things. It was a windowless warehouse. And right across the street from the warehouse, it was the local Pembroke Police Department.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's how the sheriff inadvertently walked in. He went to the warehouse to ask Calvin a question, and he saw him in the warehouse having sex with someone who later identified as Joan.
So if he was really that upset and he really wanted to kill Calvin, wouldn't he, well, first of all, wouldn't he have cornered Pam and said, hey, you know what? Your husband's shacking up with my wife. Wouldn't that have been the first move?
Yeah, I mean, the stuff about the affair, it came up after the separation. All right. And the reason it came up is because Kit, in preparation for his court martial, hired a private detective to go out and investigate certain things. And the private investigator, Mary Martins, is the one who discovered these two witnesses who claimed to have said that they caught Calvin and Joan in the act. So that's how that came about.
But you would think that, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you would think that would have been a more rageful reason for him to go off than.
Well, okay, exactly. I mean, so that's another reason that everything's pointing to Kit again, right? Not only is Calvin going to testify at the court martial, but now you have this alleged affair. So even more arrows are pointing to him. So,
but why kill Pam? That's the thing. Pam had nothing to do with it.
Well, that's the other problem with the prosecution's theory, right?
Yeah.
If their theory is that he killed Calvin because Calvin was going to testify at the court martial about basically the laptop, all right, they supposedly found that had classified information on it. Why would he need to go back to the house? All right. Why would you go back to the crime scene? And the prosecution's theory was, well, he went back. He tried to set the house on fire and it didn't burn down. So he went back to burn the house down. And in the process of going back to the crime scene, Pam came home from work earlier than she normally would, and she was shot. And then as she was shot, a neighbor at Dansville heard or saw something and came out to investigate or to aid, and he was shot. All right. So that's the prosecution's theory. But it just doesn't work. Even if you look at the timeline, all right. So can I spend just a few minutes on the timelines?
Please, yeah.
All right. We already know that there's security footage that covers the whereabouts of all of the family members in Kit's house. At 5 p.m., there's Kit, there's Laura, his fiance, and her two children, Emma and Austin. They're all home at 5 p.m. At 5:23 p.m., Emma and Austin, they leave the house because they're going to meet up with a church group and they're going to have dinner at Chick-fil-A. Mm-hmm. This is at 5:23 p.m. Now, Kit and Laura, they're celebrating an anniversary. Kit had brought roses home for Laura. They have the house to themselves. The kids are going to be gone for a couple hours. They're celebrating their anniversary, right? When Laura was asked, well, what did you do during this time? She called it, we spent some special time together, right? Mm-hmm. I think we can all read between the lines what that special time was, right? Yeah. But according to the prosecution, the kids leave at 5:23 p.m. and Kit goes across the street and ends up killing two more people because at 5:23 p.m., that is about the same time that Pamela Phillips is coming home from work, trying to find out why Calvin hasn't been answering his phone. So she's coming home, she's at home at 5:23 p.m. And according to the prosecution, at 5:30 p.m., Kit goes across the street and kills 2 people. And Laura doesn't know anything about it. And then that night, all kinds of stuff takes place because bodies are moved, they're transported, they're moved into a vehicle. The crime scene is cleaned up. The vehicle is moved to another site 4 miles away and set on fire. There's a second vehicle that's moved from the crime scene. Kit's at home the whole time. He's got 3 alibi witnesses. He's got security camera footage, but yet he's still charged with the crime. And then we haven't really talked about it, but there are, let's say, 6 or 7 things to point to his innocence.
Mm-hmm.
You want me to just list them off, and then if you want to stop at any of them, we can stop.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
All right. So first of all, you have the grand jury testimony. The only person that testified at the grand jury testimony was Detective Leonard Scott Smith. And at that grand jury testimony, he told the grand jury that the defendant's phone and the victim's, well, first of all, he said that Kit's phone was located at the location, I should say, where the car was set on fire. That's number one. Mm-hmm. Then he said one of the victim's phones and Kit's phones were both traveling south at the same time, indicating that Kit had Pamela Phillips' phone. All right. That was testimony given at the grand jury. All of that was false. Yeah. None of that was true. Not only wasn't it true, but it was contradictory to what actually happened. What actually happened was, on the morning after the crime, Kit's phone was traveling south. Pamela's phone was traveling east. So it was totally impossible. So that's the first thing. Yeah. So there was false testimony to get an indictment and to get an arrest. Additionally, they asked him, they said, well, what did the Kit's alibi witnesses say happened that evening? Oh, he was home on his couch watching TV. And then they would say, well, is that what happened? Well, no, not according to the phone evidence, right? So it's no question, it's no reason to believe why the grand jury came up with an indictment, right? I mean, because they had testimony that he had the victim's phone. Mm-hmm. So the next thing that happens is we're talking, the crime is in 2015, the arrest is in 2019, the trial doesn't begin till 2021. So they have 6 years to figure this out, right? Now we're getting close to trial. They have no evidence that's going to seal the deal. So what do? They offer him a plea deal. If you say that you were complicit to commit murder, we'll give you 5 to 13 years. So here's somebody that killed 3 people, but they're going to give him 5 to 13 years in a plea deal. That should tell you something about the strength of their case. All right. Yeah. So then once they get into the trial, they use deception throughout the trial, through their entire prosecution's opening and presentation of the crime is one deception after the other. But the most egregious deception was when they took the security camera footage and they edited it so that they would have gaps in the security camera footage where Kit could have gone across the street and committed these crimes, in the follow-up crimes, in the cleanup, right? Additionally, all of the evidence points to 2 people being involved in the crime. 2 different weapons were used, a 45 caliber and a 22 caliber, right? There aren't very many crimes where one person commits the crime with 2 different weapons. That's number one. Additionally, 2 vehicles. Well, first of all, there's the loading of the bodies. Eddesereau was probably close to 200 pounds of dead weight, loading him by yourself into the backseat of a car. Yeah. That's problematic, especially with Kit's medical condition, a bad back and knees and neck problems additionally. So there's that. Then additionally, there are two vehicles that are moved from the crime scene. So you have that, all right? Then you have the alibi witnesses. The alibi witnesses say where Kit was at home the entire time. At no time did they charge any of his alibi witnesses with perjury that said he was at home, right? If they were lying, you would think that that's one thing that they would do. Mm-hmm. Another thing, Joan, Kit's ex-wife, supposedly ex-wife, on December 31st, the killings happened November 18, 2015. Okay. On December 31st, 2015, Joan walks into an AT&T store and she has a phone with her. And she says, I'm trying to find out who this phone belongs to. Can you help me get into it? So they take the phone in the back and they open it up. They check the serial number on it. And it turns out that the phone belonged to Pamphillips, one of the victims. So you would think that that would be a serious red flag for the investigators. So Joan calls one of the detectives or the deputies, Noiseworthy, and says, hey, my son found that phone in the front yard, and we were just returning it to the AT&T store. All right? And they accept that story. That's the story that they're going to go with, that Joan found the phone in the front yard. But now the prosecution has a problem with their case. How did Pam's phone end up in Joan's front yard? Well, according to the prosecution, Kit goes and kills 3 people. That night, he loads 2 bodies into a car. He drives one car to a farm field, sets it on fire. He walks back from the farm field. He gets into the other car, Ed Dangerou's car, drives it to Joan's house, which they didn't even prove that he knew where she was living at the time, throws the phone in the front yard, drives back. Instead of parking Ed's car in his driveway, they park it in a parking lot next to the highway. And then he walks back home, goes in bed, and nobody in the house knows that he's gone. And that's their theory of how the phone ended up in Joan's front yard. But the phone evidence indicates that is totally implausible, because the phone, the 19th, the day after the crime, indicates that the phone was in Pembroke, Kentucky, and it showed movement east towards where Joan lived. And then later that day, there was evidence that showed that the phone even moved further east. There's no way it could have been laying in Joan's front yard.
I'm exhausted just from hearing that. You know that, Emilio? I mean, I'm exhausted just from hearing how far the prosecution had to go to come up with that theory.
Exactly. And I will say that a lot of people would say, well, your book provided all kinds of information that had the jury knew all this other additional information, there's no way that they could have found him guilty. Well, that is true. There was no way that they proved beyond a reasonable doubt, even with the information that the jury had, that the prosecution's theory was even plausible. And I did speak to one of the jurors, mm-hmm. and there were some very important things that came out of that interview. Number one, this whole dog tag on a string. The prosecution came up with this implausible theory that the reason that he was on a string and the reason he took it off was because the chain conducts heat, and he took it off his neck because it was getting in the way of him cleaning up the crime. Some stupid, unbelievable explanation. Well, this juror, who also happened to be a military veteran, a helicopter pilot, the other jurors were having an issue with the dog tag on a string. Mm-hmm. And this juror told the other jurors that he knew people in Afghanistan that who wore their dog tags on something other than a chain because of the desert heat. Now, and he said that convinced the people that the dog tag was his. Well, I mean, if you think about it, all right, I have a chain on my neck. I live in Dallas. It's 100 degrees outside. Not once have I ever thought about taking it off of a chain because of the heat.
Oh,
And the fact that, additionally, it wasn't an official dog tag. He would never wear a dog tag that had his nickname on it.
right.
But even worse than that, remember we talked about it earlier that the bullets that were used to kill Calvin Phillips were a very specially designed bullet.
Yeah.
And Kit had 20, 30 plus weapons in his house, hundreds of rounds of ammunition. But you know what ammunition they didn't have? They didn't find this RIP G2 research round. They didn't find any of that.
Nope.
But according to this jury, he said that they showed a picture of a box of that ammunition at the trial. It turns out that in part of the deception that the prosecution did, they showed a bunch of pictures that all pointed towards guilt, including muddy boots, including supposed blood on kerosene containers. And one of the pictures they showed was a box of ammunition in the back of a truck. But it wasn't the RIP ammunition. But this juror, I should say, saw that picture and connected the two. And then in the closing argument, the prosecutor, Barbara Whaley, insinuated that he had that type of ammunition.
So it was all subliminal.
Yeah, I mean, the prosecution set this whole thing up the way they laid it out, the way they told the story, and then the use of images that they took. For example, they showed a picture of a burn pit where in the back of Kit's house, they had a place where he burned stuff, right? Okay, when you're a juror or even a viewer watching the trial on court TV, okay, they must have found something in that burn pile that points to the crime. Well, it turns out they used to roast marshmallows over this burn area, right? And they didn't find anything in that burn pit. There was no evidence at all, but they still showed it. It indicated guilt. The same thing with the kerosene containers. 4, 5, 6 months after the crime, Kit wasn't even living in the house. They went back to the crime scene. They took some luminol pictures, and there was one that they found some kerosene containers in the garage that indicated blood on the handles. There are people who think he's guilty just because of that. But guess what? At no point during the trial did they show any DNA evidence that even indicated I don't even think they tested it, to be honest, because they never referenced it. Kit says it was probably animal blood because he had animals. He had pigs and goats and some other animals that he cared for in his backyard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's an example of how deception was used to get a conviction, in my mind.
It's a frustrating story, Emilio. And again, I'll leave the ending for the book so that people can read up and see what exactly, just how frustrating it really is. Because it's one of those stories that you see just how, I don't want to, obvious is not the word I want to use here, Emilio, but it's one of those stories that when you map everything out, when you really take time to study the minutia of all the players involved, and you say, why did people not take the time to thoroughly investigate this case and look at everybody involved and really study everybody's movements and everybody's motives? It plays itself out.
I think it goes back to the confirmation bias and the tunnel vision, right? I mean, the investigators, they had their prime suspect and all of their focus was trying to prove their theory of the crime. And when something came up that didn't fit their theory, like he had to use the front door, but the front door was unusable. Well, they came up with somebody who said that they used the front door once. So he was lying about the front door. So anything that was exculpatory, they explained it away.
The one thing we haven't mentioned that I'll mention before we leave people today is this, and that is that Calvin Phillips was called both by the defense and the prosecution in the trial.
Yeah, that's important because the motivation, according to the prosecution, was that Calvin Phillips was going to testify for the JAG prosecutors in the court-martial. But one of the most serious charges that Kit was facing, besides the child abuse and domestic abuse, was sexual assault. Right, and when Kit sent his private investigator to interview Calvin Phillips, they recorded the interview. And at no point did Calvin Phillips ever say anything about all the time that he'd spent with Joan ever saying anything about being sexually abused. And the same thing with the children. Calvin had never witnessed any abuse, domestic abuse or child abuse. He had talking to EJ, who told him that there was some beatings that had gone on. But in Kit's mind and in his defense team's mind, Calvin would be able to dispute the most serious charge, which was the sexual assault charge. Yeah. So they had him on his witness list. They were going to call him as a witness. So he was the motivation of the prosecution that he killed him to not testify at the court-martial doesn't hold up when you look at the fact that the reason that he was called as a possible defense witness was because he could help take away the sexual assault charge.
Yeah. So why kill him? I mean, if
exactly.
he helps you, why kill him? There's no reason to get rid of him. It goes against logic. So, to me, this just seems like a sloppy job by the prosecution. Seems like a sloppy job by police. Having the family do your legwork for you seems sloppy. So
Yeah, I would encourage people. There's a link on my website that goes to the Court TV thing. But anyone who's interested in streaming, documentaries, true crime documentaries, that type of stuff, here's a real murder trial that you can stream from start to finish, and make up your own mind. Did they prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt? And then you can use the book as a reference and some of the information that was in that trial, and make up your own mind. But I would encourage people to do that, to go to stream the entire trial.
The book is riveting. I think you guys are absolutely going to enjoy it. Iwillruinyou, The Twisted Truth Behind the Kit Martin Murder Trial. It's available right now by Wild Blue Press. We have a link in the description of this program. I want you guys to go out and get it right now. Emilio Corsetti, I want to thank you so much for being with us today on True Crime Tuesday.
And thank you for having me.
Thank you. Folks, it's time now for us to lighten things up a little bit. It's time now to bring in Jessicafreeburg. It's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals.
It's Crayon News story time.
What happened with this dude, Christ Bearer? I heard he cut his penis off and then jumped off a balcony.
Suspect pulls gun from butt, shoots twice at Denver police.
What is your emergency?
I need help.
And what's the problem?
I'm too high.
You're too high?
Yeah.
It's that time you've all been looking forward to. It's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals. And with that, we bring in a co-hostess. She's intelligent. She's witty. She's beautiful. And of course, she brings the funny. Here she is, Jessicafreeburg. Hi, Jessica.
Hey, Tim. Great to see you.
I'm glad to see a human face that's not trying to destroy my life. How are you?
I'm good. I'm definitely not here to destroy your life. I promise.
Thank you. God. Mercury retrograde, I think, is trying to destroy me. I'm normally not a big believer in Mercury retrograde, but anyways, we won't, we digress. We're here to have fun, right?
That's right. Let's bring on the fun.
Yeah, right. So let's have some fun. Let's talk about some dumb crimes and some stupid criminals. Let's jump into it. By the way, I do have some really good news I'll tell you in tomorrow.
Ooh, yay.
Besides all the bad stuff that's happened, I did have something really, really cool happen.
Yay, I can't wait to hear about it tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. A Florida woman is arrested. By the way, I got lots of stories from lots of our listeners this week. Tony was one of them who sent this story, which will kick off Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals. This seems like more of a delusional story than anything else and quite scary. So I'll lead off with this. And it goes like this. A Florida woman is arrested for the ambush murder and the killing of a deputy and claims she worked for God. Tip number one, kids. If God's telling you to ambush a lawman, it's probably not God.
Probably not.
Rule number one, just saying, question that voice in the head if God's telling you to do bad things.
Yeah, that's not the God voice. That's the crazy voice.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it, Jess. Yeah. A Florida woman was arrested in connection with what officials describe as an ambush attack that killed one deputy and injured two other deputies. 48-year-old Julie Ann Sulpizio. Got to get my diction going here, is charged with first-degree premeditated murder of a law enforcement officer, 7 counts of attempted murder, felony batteries, and strangulation, 2 counts of battery and battery on a law enforcement officer. I would say she's in trouble.
She did some bad things.
Right? Lake County Sheriff Peyton Grinnell said at a news conference that Sulpizio was taken into custody on Monday afternoon at a hospital in Tavares, Florida, after being transported there for treatment on Friday night. Sulpizio remains in custody without bond, according to the sheriff. Master Deputy Sheriff Bradley Michael Link was killed in the Friday night shooting that Grinnell described as an ambush. Master Deputy Sheriff Harold Howell, who's all 41 years old, and 28-year-old Deputy First Class Stefano Gargano were injured in the attack. Now, the sheriff that was killed was only 28 years old.
Oh, no, that's so sad.
Yeah. Deputies initially responded to a report of a disturbance at a home around 8 p.m. on Friday before they were directed to another home near Eustis. They found that the back door was kicked in and heard a disturbance inside the home. When they entered the home, deputies were met with gunfire. Link was shot and became trapped inside the home and later succumbed to his injuries. Grinnell gave a timeline of the events surrounding the Friday shooting. He explained that the caller said a woman, later identified as Sulpizio, was attacking people and trespassing on their property. Sulpizio allegedly hit residents and made religious comments, including accusing them of being sinners. The complainant stated that Sulpizio was acting religious, accusing them of being sinners, and she knows what they did. Got to be specific. I mean, I don't care who you are. Be specific. They identified Julie Sulpizio as their neighbor, but Julie states that she is Helen under God's will.
Oh, okay.
We're ramping up. Just saying. During a calm verbal exchange, Julie Sulpizio states that they, meaning the group of people that were present there, were involved in pedophilia. Now we're getting specific.
Ooh, just keeps getting better, Tim.
Big charge. Big charge here, Jess. Grinnell added, she again claims to be Helen, and she asked one of the victims that she had battered, who was your God? Whew, all right. In a later interview with investigators, Sulpizio said she was attempting to lure these neighbors to her home so her husband could kill them.
Oh, okay. A little family bonding.
Yeah, well, family that kills together stays together. She was not successful because of our deputies, he said. Well, thank God for that. I mean, the real God, not the one that's speaking in her ear, but the real.
Right.
Grinnell said Sulpizio told the people that that Julie is in heaven. Oh boy. So Sulpizio killed the real Julie. I don't know if you're following along here, Jess, but
I'm so confused.
she killed the Julie that's in here.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. She killed her real self and now she's living in her alternate self.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. She then went on to state, you see, the thing is, we need to trick Lucy. And we later learned Lucy to be a name that she calls Lucifer, the sheriff said, adding that Sulpizio then pointed to the deputy and said, you are one of them. Oh, boy. When deputies attempted to arrest Sulpizio, they also went to conduct a welfare check at her home down the street. As they arrived at the home, they found 2 dead dogs outside and an open window with the screen kicked out. The deputies, suspecting this was suspicious, called for backup, which they, thank God, did. Link and Howell entered the home through the back entrance and went through the living room and hallway when Link, who had his back turned, was ambushed by Sulpizio's husband, Michael, who the sheriff said was armed and ready. So she really was taking him back to be slaughtered.
Yikes.
Link was shot in the back and was shot several more times as he was attempting to crawl away after running out of ammunition. The couple's 2 daughters, Savannah and Cheyenne, were also inside the home, and one was heard shouting, my king will kill all of you. You are Lucifer's children.
Oh no, they reproduced. That's terrible.
This sounds like a nightmare scenario.
What do you do with those kids after this? Like, they cannot be normal now. How do you fix that?
They have to be deprogrammed.
Yeah.
This is like a mini cult going on. Link's body camera footage showed that Michael and his daughters discussed suicide before they were all found dead with gunshot wounds to their heads.
They're dead. Oh my gosh. This is the worst story. Tony, you're really bringing out the big guns today.
I know, right? Yeah, Tony just hit us with the double barrel. I'm sorry. That's horrible. That's horrible. I shouldn't have said that. That's horrible. The sheriff said deputies found during a search of the home a stockpile of guns, ammunition, and bottled water, but no phones or televisions. The sheriff said anti-government propaganda and materials from conspiracy theory-related media were also discovered. Grinnell said Sulpizio appeared to show no remorse and had been under observation in the hospital for the past few days before her arrest.
Wow, that's a tragedy all the way around.
Yeah. So that's something else. Let's continue on here. A Texas man sentenced to 40 years in prison for decapitating his wife left her head in the shower. I know we're not going in a funnier vein here, folks. We'll get there eventually. Believe me, we're
laughing because I'm so uncomfortable, Tim. That's all.
No, it's not a funny laughter. It's an uncomfortable laughter. This next story, as I said, we're going to Texas. A Texas man was sentenced to 40 years in prison. Believe it or not, I did not pick these. These are from our listeners.
They're great, honestly. This is exactly what the world is having happen. So bring it.
Right. A Texas man was sentenced to 40 years in prison as part of a plea agreement after pleading guilty to murdering his newlywed wife. Jared James, I'm going to say Dicus. It looks like Dickus, like discus without the S, but I'll say
you can call him Dickus. I feel like chopping your wife's head off and leaving it in the shower is a very Dickus move.
There you go. So, okay, Dickus. Right? Jared James Dickus's sentencing was handed down on Wednesday by Judge Gary Cheney after chopping 21-year-old, I believe this is Angie Diaz's head off and leaving it in the shower back in 2023. I mean, it hasn't been there the entire time, but don't get me wrong.
Ew.
Yeah, but I mean, back in that time frame. Dickus is now 23 years old. That's it. He's just 23 and pleaded to guilty to murder, and his earliest parole date will not be until 2043, which probably should be longer than that, but 2043, Jess.
I think maybe never.
Yeah. The Waller County District Attorney's Office consulted with Diaz's family before finalizing the plea deal and sentencing. During the pretrial phase of the case, potential mental health issues were raised regarding Dickus's competency to stand trial, but he was considered competent to stand trial after court-ordered examination, according to a statement released by the Waller County District Attorney's Office. As part of that plea deal, Dickus waived his right to appeal the verdict, the sentence, and any potential defense, including an insanity defense. He also waived any post-conviction writ of habeas corpus. Diaz, who had worked as counter help at a local business, was originally from Nicaragua and was initially in the care of an aunt when she first arrived in the U.S., her family said late last year. Dickus was charged in January of 2023 with murdering Diaz after marrying her 3 months earlier. Waller County Sheriff's Office deputies found Diaz on the couple's bedroom floor in a pool of blood with multiple stab wounds in her back and what appeared to be her head located in the shower. Waller County Sheriff Troy Guidry said evidence showed that a kitchen knife was the murder weapon and that all parts and pieces were recovered. After Diaz's death last year, Dickus confessed to investigators that he had murdered his wife. So, cheery story number 2 to open up today.
It's full of sunshine.
Gallows humor. You got to use gallows humor to get through this sometimes. All right, now we'll lighten it up just a bit as a Russian chess player allegedly poisons his rival before a match. This again from our listeners.
Ooh, did he give him a little like chocolate laxative or something? That's the fun kind of poison.
Well, I don't think it was the fun run to the bathroom and, evacuate it type. I think this is the,
all right.
You're out.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, here we go.
Dagestani chess player. I bet you didn't know there were chess players in Dagestan.
No, I didn't know. Quite a sport there, huh?
Yeah, I guess. I don't think there's too much full contact chess happening in Dagestan. I don't know. Dagestani chess player Amina, I believe it says Abakarova. Yeah, allegedly poisoned her opponent with mercury. Going old school on the bit.
Ooh, ouch.
That's a painful way to go.
Yeah.
Mercury. Before a chess tournament on August 2nd, according to Baza, which is a Russian telegram news channel. They still use telegrams to pass the news back and forth in Russia?
I think so, like 1940s.
Yeah, we're worried about them, huh? A security camera video of the chess tournament in the city of Makakala shows a Bakarova going to her opponent's, oh my, I think our listeners do this just to hear me pronounce these names. Umaganat Osmanova table, sprinkling something close to where she would sit. Amina Abakarova from the city of Makakala, made me sneeze almost, applied to an unidentified substance, which later turned out to contain mercury, to the table where Umagnat Osmanova from the city of Kaspisk was set to play against her. Sahidova, the president of the Russian Republic of Dagestan's Physical Culture and Sports Ministry, confirmed with the Russian state media outlet. I almost feel like this is a made-up story written by Borat. I mean, come on. Osmanova reportedly discovered the mercury when a piece of it came out from under the board. So it didn't quite take.
So they survived.
They survived. In the first minutes, I felt a lack of air and a taste of iron in my mouth, Osmanova told RTV1. I had to spend about 5 hours on this board. I don't know what would have happened to me if I hadn't seen it earlier. I still feel bad, Osmanova added. Osmanova beat Abakarova the previous week at a July chess tournament. A bitter Abakarova reportedly refused to shake Osmanova's hand following the competition, according to Osmanova. She should have been grateful to me that I didn't make a fuss and forgave her, Osmanova said of the incident. They're hardcore over there.
Wow. She just was like, it's cool. I didn't die.
It's like that scene from Rocky IV. I must break you. Right? Except for
I'm trying to think if you like tried to poison me with mercury, I would be pretty, I would forgive you eventually, but like not on the spot.
yeah, I guess. Osmanova added that Abakrova. Listen to me, I'm getting into the Russian accent.
Yes, so good.
Bakrova and Osmova, moose and squirrel, has violated the rules in the past, bringing a phone to the tournament, which is prohibited. Probably, getting a little text message saying what the next move would be.
Yeah, cheating,
Yeah.
cheating and trying to kill.
Yeah. Russian outlet MASH reported that Abakrova, not the smoothest criminal, has asked organizers if the security cameras were functioning 20 minutes before the competition started. Truly a dumb criminal.
Yes, very dumb.
Yeah. Abakrova has been detained by police under charges of intentional infliction of minor harm to health. It could face up to 2 years in jail. So there you go. This next story, Jess, I find a little funny. This is not dumb crime, stupid criminals. This is dumb cops, mistaken identity.
Ooh, okay.
Okay. We go to Atlanta, where you might have heard this one if you are a fan of TMZ. T.I., famous rapper, right?
Yes.
You may be familiar with what T.I. looks like. I know almost everybody in Atlanta is because that's where he lives. It's kind of like if you lived here in Minneapolis and didn't know what Prince looked like.
Yeah, true. Well, everyone knows what Prince looks like, though.
True, but
He's an icon.
everybody in Atlanta pretty much knows what T.I. looks like. It's like not knowing what a can of Coca-Cola looks like. And he's, synonymous with Atlanta. Well, T.I. was arrested at the Atlanta airport due to mistaken identity last week.
What?
Yeah. Turns out, here's the story. T.I. was just trying to live his life when a case of mistaken identity led him to tangle with the law. The 43-year-old rapper, born Clifford Joseph Harris Jr., was arrested on Sunday, August 4th at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport in Atlanta after law enforcement confused him with another man, also named Clifford Harris.
Ah.
This one's pretty easy to solve. Now, here's how bad it got, though, Jess. The other Clifford Harris had an arrest warrant out in Baltimore, Maryland. Not even in Atlanta. Now,
yeah, that's a little hop, skip, and a jump.
Right. Now, keep in mind that T.I. travels, so it could be that there might have been an arrest warrant out in Baltimore for this Clifford Harris. But the outlet added that the man is wanted on charges of alleged violent behavior towards a woman, stalking, and possible gun-related incident. Now, T.I.'s wife lives in Atlanta. Okay, but maybe he's got, a little side piece happening in Baltimore. You never know. Right? After being arrested at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, T.I. was transported to Clayton County Jail. Now, this speaks to how much of a gentleman T.I. is. You ready for this?
I am.
An extradition hearing was automatically triggered because the warrant came from out of state. Okay? Now, T.I. didn't fuss. T.I. didn't put up a fight. He didn't scream and shout. Here's what happened. Before the extradition process could begin further, T.I.'s attorney allegedly intervened. According to TMZ, T.I.'s lawyer, Steve Sadow, quickly made a phone call to someone at the Clayton County Sheriff's Office and had the rapper released from custody within 2 hours of his arrest. But for 2 hours, T.I. was a complete gentleman.
Really?
Mm-hmm. He let them arrest him, book him, go through the entire process. He didn't say, "Don't you know who I am?" He just went.
They'd be like, yeah, you're the guy we're looking for.
He just let him go through the process. The judge who was assigned the case at the extradition hearing reviewed T.I.'s case and promptly dismissed the order. Part of what may have helped officials realize they had the wrong Clifford Harris could have come down to the physical description and attributes. The Clifford Harris wanted in Maryland reportedly weighed 205 pounds. T.I. is 165 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
There's 40 pounds difference.
That should have been a clue.
Yeah. The Post reached out to T.I.'s lawyers for additional comment. T.I. is linked with Atlanta, born and raised in the Georgia Capitol, credited with being one of the pioneers of rap music. You know, he's got lots of stuff going on. He owns a restaurant, the Trap City Cafe, which opened in 2022. On Sunday, the same day he was mistakenly arrested, he posted a video on his Instagram promoting the restaurant and inviting people to visit the eatery for Sunday Fun Days brunch and dinner. Right? It was unclear whether T.I. was at the cafe that day or not. T.I. also had a run-in with the law in 2021. He was arrested in Amsterdam after his bike collided with a police vehicle accidentally.
Oopsie.
Yeah. The Live Your Life hitmaker posted an Instagram video at the time explaining that he was in police custody for only 25 minutes over that. That was a mistake. Prior to that incident, T.I. was arrested in 2018 and charged with misdemeanor simple assault, disorderly conduct, and public drunkenness, not pumping anything, but public drunkenness after a security guard refused to grant him entry to his gated community. Now, nothing like what was charged on that day, but, you know.
Wild.
Simple stuff. So there you go. I have another instance of dumb cops' stupid actions. But this time it has to do with the Secret Service.
Ooh, I'm intrigued.
Nothing having to do with anybody being shot, by the way. This having to do with the U.S. Secret Service finding its way into a hair salon near the Colonial Theater. They also took a little, gave a little.
Okay.
You're going to find out what they did here. The owner says that they didn't ask permission to be in the building. We go to Pittsfield, where the U.S. Secret Service, if they had simply asked, Alicia Powers would have been happy to let the officers use her hair salon, which is across the parking lot from the back of the Colonial Theater. They needed it for a comfort station, Jess.
Oh, what's a comfort station? I want one of those.
Well, let's just say sometimes when you got to go, you got to go.
Oh,
A comfort station, right?
I see.
It turns out that Vice President Kamala Harris was in Pittsfield. And, you know, sometimes you got to relieve yourself, right? Yeah. So Powers, who's the owner of the 413 Salon at 54 Wendell Avenue, says, I'm the kind of person that would have set up coffee and donuts for them had they asked me for permission. Nice enough, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. But they didn't ask Powers or her landlord. Instead, they taped over a security camera on the back porch, broke into the salon and helped themselves with the bathroom, ate the mints on the counter, and left without tidying up the bathroom or locking the back door on the way out.
Not cool.
Technically, that's a violation of the Third Amendment. They're cops and they broke in.
Yeah.
Powers said the Secret Service's Boston office had apologized on behalf of the agency. She also said Pittsfield police officers, up to and including Chief Thomas Dawley, have been helpful and supportive of her efforts to get accountability. The person she spoke with at the Secret Service confirmed that the woman who taped over the Ring camera at about 8:12 a.m. on July 27th was with the agency. She also said the agency offered to pay to have the salon cleaned and pay for any damages, and also pay the business's private alarm bill because it was going off for so long.
Oh, no.
That's horrible. She says, I was happy with his apology. It's a little bit of accountability. Again, I wasn't looking to do anything, Powers said. But she was particularly alarmed about the agents leaving the space so vulnerable after they left.
Yeah, that's really not cool at all.
They didn't lock up. She says, we're a small business. We've all worked incredibly hard to build this business, she said. This is our livelihood, and it could have been taken from all of my 12 employees in a flash. Because she must rent space, right? Yeah. A voicemail message left Friday at the Secret Service's Boston office seeking comment was not returned by press time on Friday, but Secret Service spokesperson Melissa McKenzie told iBerkshires, which first reported the incident, that the agency had reached out. We hold these relationships in the highest regard, and our personnel would not enter or instruct our partners to enter a business without the owner's permission, Mackenzie said. Well, evidently you did.
Yeah.
While the apology helped, Powers still feels violated, disrespected, and a little angry. I don't blame him.
I would too.
Yeah. So there you go. Let's move on to the next story here, Jess. This is a story of not a man breaking out of jail, but breaking in.
Oh, well, that's a choice.
It is. I like how you put that. That's a choice. A man causes extensive damage to Allegheny County Jail, specifically to their door, while trying to break in, at least in its attempted break-in. I don't know if you've ever tried to break into jail before, but it's not an easy thing to do.
I have not.
Let's find out why he tried to break into jail. That seems odd.
Okay.
A man caused extensive damage to a door at the Allegheny County Jail while attempting to break into the building on Saturday morning. According to police, the Allegheny County Police Department says they were notified of an attempted break-in to the visitors' lobby of the jail around 7 a.m. It's kind of an odd time to break into jail, but okay. Pittsburgh police officers responded to the jail and found a man with a minor injury. That'll happen when you try to break into jail.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Police then identified that man as 34-year-old Charles Felder. And this is what a man who tries to break into jail looks like, Jess. There he is.
Is that just his foot?
Oh, did it? Oh, sorry. Let me go backwards. Oh, let me see here.
Was he just breaking in with one socked foot?
Let me go backwards in the pictures here. Let me see. Here's his picture right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there it is. Okay. Yeah. I had this picture up that I went to show you and it skipped forward to his foot.
Technology.
That was a picture of a compression sock. It was an ad.
Oh, okay.
ACPD detectives started an investigation and determined he tried to get into the lobby through various means, damaging the door and hurting himself. That's not good. Court documents say he was seen on surveillance video trying to use garbage cans as battering rams and kick the door multiple times. Felder also allegedly yanked the door handle off. He allegedly continued these attempts for 3 hours before passing out.
Oh, wow.
So he's got stamina.
3 hours.
Yeah. Medics were called, and court documents say Felder spit on one of their faces and put up a fight as they tried to load him into an ambulance. Oh, good job, buddy. He was taken to an area hospital for treatment of minor injuries. Felder faces harassment and burglary-related charges. Anyone with information on this attempted break-in should call the county police tip line. My deal is, don't you have enough information? Yeah. Guy broke in, you should ask him questions.
Yeah, I think you have all the information you need.
I think so. Dude tried to break in. He's there. Ask him the questions yourself. Right? I mean, it seems cut and dried to me.
Simple enough.
Here's another interesting conundrum here, Jess. We have a guy who tries to break into jail. Now we have a woman who tries to build a drive-through for a taco truck.
Okay. Innovative.
Yeah, well, after she tried to vandalize it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is making
artistic. Was it like?
Well, no, she's
spray paint.
She's making amends. You know, in the AA program, when you wrong somebody, you try to make amends, right?
Oh, okay. So she vandalized, and then she's like, "I'm just gonna make them a drive-through."
Yeah, I'm gonna try to make it right. So I'm gonna make them a drive-through.
Thoughtful.
Weird. Here's what happened. This woman crashes her car rather into a Canoga Park taco shop. And she does this a week after vandalizing their catering truck. Bizarre story. Police arrested a woman for intentionally crashing a car into a Canoga Park taco shop on Friday night. The driver drove straight through the storefront of Taco Reyes near the intersection of Topanga Canyon Boulevard and Satakoy Street. I think that's how it's pronounced, Satakoy. After destroying the storefront, she continued all the way into the dining area and resumed her destructive rampage. What have tacos ever done to you? Besides maybe
Well, maybe a little indigestion, a little gas. Not enough to make me want to tear a place apart, though.
a couple of pounds on the hips. I mean, it's, I don't know. A moment on the lips, a couple of pounds on the hips. Is that how it goes?
Yeah.
Uh, a video shows the driver repeatedly ramming a wall shared with an adjacent bar. Maybe she needed a drink that badly. I don't know. Officers from the Los Angeles Police Department arrested her shortly after the ordeal. Police booked her for felony vandalism and may add an assault with a deadly weapon charge, since police were inside the restaurant when she ran through the building. Investigators say she allegedly vandalized a Taco Reyes catering truck last week in Reseda. It's unclear if anyone was injured. On Saturday, a member of the Taco Reyes ownership team told KCAL News that the woman who crashed into the restaurant was a summer employee from 4 years ago. So she's got a history.
Wow.
Now, she still has several family members that still work at the location, including her mother, who has worked there for more than 8 years.
Oh, no. I bet they're so mad.
They've got to be embarrassed. They believe that the woman has been struggling with mental health issues and recalled her as a sweet and respectful young lady who left the restaurant on good terms to pursue other employment opportunities. So evidently, she decided to help out. If you think that's bad, we've got more tacos and burritos in the news. Are you ready for this?
Gonna make me hungry, but yes, let's go.
It evidently is dinner time. Ready? I got another story here, Jess, about a dentist who's charged with an alleged burrito battery.
You battered someone with a burrito?
I guess.
I'm ready for this one.
A domestic squabble is triggered by a fast food spread. Here we go. An argument early Saturday began over Dr. Aisha Persad, a 34-year-old dentist, getting her husband Taco Bell and McDonald's for his birthday. Sounds like a good spread to me.
Yeah, that's a pretty nice birthday gift. That's a fancy birthday dinner right there.
That's fancy. You could tell we're from Minnesota because that's a fancy birthday dinner there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You bring me Taco Bell and McDonald's. I'm satisfied. Yeah.
I mean, not just one, both.
I got
that is special.
I got you both. And they're not off the value menu either.
Yeah, it's a real meal.
I got you a gordita.
Ooh, yeah.
And I got you a double quarter pounder with cheese. Yeah.
My butt just grew just listening to this.
During the 12:20 a.m. squabble, that's right. I think there's alcohol involved. Persad allegedly threw a soft shell taco at the 35-year-old birthday boy. I can't imagine that hurt too much.
Not too bad.
For those of you watching on video, here's the perfect stance when someone throws a soft shell taco at you. There you go. I know that sucks for you, those of you listening on audio. Essentially what it was crouch, put the hands out, mouth open wide.
Perfect.
There you go. You're in perfect position to receive a soft shell taco right in the maw. The delicacy struck the man on the right side of the face. So, Jess, here's the deal. Hits the guy on the right side of the face, right?
Yes.
Which means what? Guy's got terrible hands or can't catch anything in his mouth.
Right. Either way, it's time to eat.
That's right. Either way, time to eat. When a patrolman responded to the couple's St. Petersburg residence, the burrito was still on the victim's face.
See, that would never happen with me. I would have been like, hold on. I got this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To me, it just says one, not hungry enough, or two, he was very careful to keep the evidence on his face.
Oh, well, that could be too. Preserving the crime scene.
Yes. It's unclear why an arrest report alternately refers to the Mexican missile as a taco and a burrito, though perhaps the investigator was actually referring to a tortilla.
Could have been a quesadilla. Who knows now? They've got it all messed up.
That's right. Yeah, it's just mislabeling all the way around. The victim, who's been married to Prasad for 5 years, said he was not injured by the Taco Bell menu item. After being read her rights, Prasad reportedly said she threw a burrito at the victim after he threw a bag at her. Dude, just take the birthday meal and be happy.
Yeah.
You could be sitting there with nothing. Prasad was arrested for domestic battery, a misdemeanor, and booked into the county jail, from which she was later released on her own recognizance. So she got him a birthday meal and ended up in jail.
I don't really know what to say to that.
Are
It's
you ready?
not a very good thank you.
That isn't a very good thing. Are you ready for this? Prasad and her spouse last year purchased their Florida home for $535,000. Prasad, who grew up in Bangalore, India, holds dental licenses in Florida and South Carolina, where the couple previously resided. A bio on the website of the dental practice where Prasad works notes that she and her husband wholeheartedly embrace the coastal lifestyle and delight in savoring our community's different culinary offerings.
By throwing them at each other.
Culinary offerings like Taco Bell and McDonald's. I'm just
Oh
saying.
my.
Yeah.
It's an ironic thing to have on her bio.
Every once in a while, they really get crazy. They really get wild, Jess, and they try this new place called Olive Garden.
Ooh, now that is fancy. I don't care what anyone says.
That is top notch. I tell you, if you ever get out there, you should try it. Speaking of Olive Garden, we're going to talk about a Sunday night spaghetti dinner dispute that got very saucy.
Ooh, was there a throwing of spaghetti?
Yeah. See, that to me, that's a little kinky. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it's a food fight.
Yeah, that's kind of cute. I'm not going to lie. A Sunday night spaghetti dinner turned violent when a 41-year-old man threw the pasta at his mother. Okay, that's not kinky.
You can't throw pasta at your mom.
You can't, no. He struck the victim in the head with the starchy weapon, leaving her splattered with sauce, according to police.
It makes me laugh because when my kids are bad, I will tell them 30 lashes with a wet noodle. That's like my mom's threat.
Yes, my mom did that too. Yeah. Yeah. Investigators say Anthony Fiacco last evening, or this wasn't last evening, a couple of evenings ago, had a verbal argument with the victim that turned physical in the Florida home. Of course, we're going to Florida, where the 61-year-old victim resided with the accused. The spaghetti made contact with the victim, who had spaghetti sauce in her hair, according to police. Here's the fat bastard who threw spaghetti at his mother.
Oh, not cool.
I say that being a fat bastard myself. So I have license to say such. Fiacco allegedly fled the home then, Jess, when officers arrived after being spotted hiding behind a bush in the backyard, the coward. Fiacco sought to run away, but was quickly corralled by police. I can't imagine he runs too fast. He probably waddles.
Well, he doesn't seem like a very tough guy, does he? Like, you're throwing pasta at your mom and you're
Right.
out back hiding behind a bush. Like,
Yeah. Ma, this pasta here is al dente. And then he throws it at her.
take his man card away.
Yep. Fiacco was charged with domestic battery for the spaghetti incident, which, by the way, is my favorite GNR album. As well as resisting an officer. He was booked into the county jail on the misdemeanor counts. No weapon was seized by police except for the spaghetti. It is unclear how long the Sunday gravy had been simmering. Is it sauce or gravy, Jess? I'm just curious what you think it is.
Oh, it's definitely sauce if it's pasta sauce.
Yeah. Well,
it's gravy if it's made from like chicken fat.
Oh, look at you getting specific.
I was a foods teacher, actually, Tim.
Because in some Italian families, it's gravy.
I suppose. I'm not Italian. I'm just going by, recipe books.
Is it sauce or is it gravy? The 5'6", 250-pound Fiacco, who's probably due for a heart attack any day.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
5'6", 250. He's not a shape. I'll just put it that way.
But he hid behind a bush.
He's not in shape. He's not a shape. His doctor is concerned. Appeared in court where a judge ordered him to have no contact with his mother. Fiacco will be allowed a one-time visit in the presence of law enforcement to retrieve personal belongings from his St. Petersburg residence. It's there that he'll ask his mother, "Please take me back, Ma. I've never been out on my own." Fiacco, who also uses the surname Edlin, has prior convictions for battery, trespass, violating probation, and throwing a deadly missile into a building. The missile, by the way, was a Heineken bottle that he chucked into an apartment window after being asked to leave a party. By the way, flying glass hit several individuals.
Wow. He really likes to throw things.
He does. He fancies himself the roly-poly quarterback.
Yeah.
Call him
You
that.
say he's kind of like a toddler throwing a tantrum. He gets whatever he has in his hand, he just throws it.
That's true. That is true. All right. Let's see here. Yes. I believe we are at the not safe for work category of our program. So if you have kids in the room, escort them out. They probably should have been escorted out before we hit grandma with spaghetti. But it's time now for that part of the program. Put your earbuds in if you're at work. We don't want your coworkers to hear this, nor your boss. We'll get that in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. You may remember the story about the library girl who was in the library. Let's just say she was doing some solo exploits to learn about her porn career.
Okay.
In Dallas, Texas. Now she's back in the news. Turns out library girl just got booked on a felony drug rap in Texas.
Oh.
That's right. Library girl just got booked. Kendra Sunderland, whose solo exploits at an Oregon State University library helped her launch her porn career, was arrested last week on felony drug charges in Texas. 29-year-old Sunderland was busted Thursday afternoon while driving on Interstate 45 in Willis, a city about 50 miles north of Houston. Sunderland was behind the wheel of a 2013 Lexus pulled over by Montgomery County Sheriff's Office deputies. According to a redacted incident report, Sunderland was nabbed for possession of a controlled substance, which apparently was marijuana, especially when you look at her booking photo. She was booked into the county jail, for which she was subsequently released. Sunderland, who was listed in police records as a Las Vegas resident, is pictured in this mugshot that I'm going to show Jess. I will tell you, when you look at it, you can definitely tell that's marijuana.
Yes. She looks a little sleepy.
Yes, she looks like she needs a nappy poo. Sunderland shot to fame in 2015 after filming a 31-minute webcam performance inside OSU's Valley Library. The video, which found its way to the internet, showed Sunderland exposing the old tatas in the downstairs. I'm putting it nicely. Touching herself and licking herself.
Oh.
She's a very talented girl.
Wow, you got to be pretty bendy.
Yeah, well, let's just say the yoga's coming in handy. Sunderland had attended Oregon State. She was not currently registered for classes when she used the library's Wi-Fi connection to broadcast her webcam performance via her laptop. So evidently anybody can get into the library at Oregon State.
I guess.
Yeah. She was charged with public indecency at the time. Sunderland copped to the misdemeanor count and was fined $1,000 at the time. Over the following years, Sunderland's adult film career had blossomed and her social media accounts exploded. 800,000 Instagram followers, 1.1 million followers on X or Twitter. Sunderland even had her own signature model, Fleshlight.
Wow. I don't know what a fleshlight is. Fleshlight?
Fleshlight. I'll let you look that one up on your own, Jess.
I have to Google it. I swear, if I ever get like arrested and they look at all my Googling things, I'll be like, what is wrong with this woman? She's clearly a degenerate.
Let's just put it this way. Don't look it up in front of the sun.
Okay.
I think he'll explode.
He probably already knows what it is.
Oh, he knows what it is.
Yeah.
I'll guarantee you that. But if he sees mom was looking it up, he'll lose his lunch. In a recent Instagram post, Sunderland noted that the 9th anniversary of the Library Girl video, The Day My Life Changed Forever, said, "Thank you to everyone who participated in getting me this far. I love you all." So there you go. By the way, Jess, this is a picture of what the Library Girl video looked like. She was, she was kind of
hanging out at the library, literally.
Literally, yes. That is what she was doing.
And I found a picture of a fleshlight. Took a minute because they were all blurred. Like my phone was like, no, naughty. And then one finally came up and I was like, oh, that's innovative. That's smart. I wish I would have thought of it. Think of how rich I would be right now.
You'd be a billionaire.
I would so be retired on an island.
You would. I love the fact that you do instant research because
I do it a lot.
Yeah, because the reaction is classic. Yeah. I don't know what to say now. I think I'm actually blushing. If you can see it on camera, folks, I'm actually blushing right now. Our final story for today, thank God I'm turning down the temperature a couple degrees, has to do with a defendant who was hit with 558 days in jail for contempt after he told a Michigan judge to kiss my ass.
Ooh, can't say that.
You gotta love this. This is the epitome of dumb crime, stupid criminals. This story, Jess, you're gonna love. A foul-mouthed defendant will be in jail for over a year after he told a Michigan judge to kiss my ass in an expletive-laced outburst. There's actually a video for this, which I think I may post in the description of this show, just so people can watch it to see
do it.
How dumb you can be. The guy's name is Daryl Jarrell, but I'd like to think he calls himself Daryl Jarrell, just so he has Daryl, so he has alliteration. Appeared before Washtenaw County Judge Cedric Simpson on Wednesday for a simple misdemeanor trespassing charge. But as the judge was about to adjourn, he decided he needed his 2 cents. Right? He was free and clear. All he had to do was shut his mouth.
No, that's hard for some people, Tim.
Oh, it is. It is, Jeff. He said, "I'm tired of the state. I'm ready to leave this state as soon as possible." Oh, boy. All right. He says, "It's trespassing. I could technically leave, and you guys could issue a warrant, and as long as I don't return, you can just kiss my ass," he ranted. Oh, boy. Simpson did not appreciate the swearing. By the way, if I can get the ad to for the Tesla Cybertruck to disappear on me, I can show you what this guy looks like. Here's what he looks like. Doesn't he kind of look like a dick?
Yeah, I mean, you hate to say that because he just is, that's his face.
Yeah.
He does kind of look like a guy who would tell a judge to kiss his ass when he didn't need to do that.
I think Judge Cedric Simpson is the same guy who tagged that one driver who was zooming, who did the Zoom video from his car.
Oh, yeah. I think you're right.
I think he's the same judge. If it is,
he gets all the good cases.
He does. You know what? No. I'm going to tell you what Jarrell said. Oh, no. I'm sorry. The judge said, you know what? No. I'm going to tell you what the judge said. Fuck you, Jarrell said. Oh. This contempt, that's 93. Simpson shot back. In other words, 93 days.
Yeah.
Right? But Jarrell again said, fuck you, to which Simpson ordered that he be slapped with another 93. So now you're up to 186 because I can do math.
Yeah, good job.
Thanks. As the bailiff escorted Jarrell out of the courtroom, He continued hurling profanities at the judge 6 times, racking up a total of 558 days behind bars.
What a dumb man.
Right. That's 693s consecutive, Simpson told the court. The eruption reportedly stemmed from Trialw being unhappy about his court date, but when Simpson attempted to explain that his attorneys had been unable to get in contact with him, causing the delay, he became upset. The judge quickly moved on to the next case for defendant Keith Jenkins, whose jaw dropped to the floor in shock during Trialw's blowup as he waited for his turn on a Zoom call. Jenkins remained speechless as Simpson introduced his case.
Oh, can you imagine being that guy?
Yeah. How are you doing, Your Honor? How are you doing, sir? Jenkins chuckled, politely asking. I'm doing great, Simpson responded with a laugh as he told Jenkins he was unbothered by Trialw's conduct. That's because Simpson has dealt with difficult defendants before. And I was right. He was the judge in that Zoom call with the suspended license.
Crazy.
So he's unfazed. Corey Harris was that defendant. So there you go. Judge
I liked
Simpson.
that one.
Yeah. Judge Simpson. You got to love him. I think this guy should have his own TV show.
He totally should. I would watch it.
I would too. He's unflappable. And he's not afraid to hand out tough sentences, evidently. So that'll do it for Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals. Again, folks, if you have a story you want to send us, tim@darknessradio.com. You can send us a Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminal story. Want to thank our listeners and viewers who sent us stories today. Much appreciated. On tomorrow's show, Supernatural News, got lots of good stories for that. And I got a little bit of happy news for you guys for tomorrow. So looking forward to that. For Jessica Freeburg, I'm Tim Dennis. Thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you for watching and listening to the best in true crime podcasting. Oh, by the way, the book is called I Will Ruin You. And it's by Emilio Corsetti. We have a link in the description of this program. Go check it out. We'll see you tomorrow for Supernatural News. Thank you for watching and listening to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday.
For more True Crime Tuesday audio and video archives, please visit darknessradioshow.com. Thanks for watching.